Hey, kia ora, Helen Brahms here with today's edition of Genealogy and History. It is April 23rd. So we're going to be going from 1348 to 1982. So what fun things happened on April 23rd in history, and how are they connected to your families? Well, there's a few interesting ones in here. So have a look to see, when you're researching your family tree, are you related to the people that I mentioned? Would they have been around when these historic events took place? What do you think their reactions would have been to them? What makes it very interesting when you're looking up these things? So, on this day in 1848, I just got to do, there we go. Didn't want to lose my place. On this day in 1348, the Order of Garter was founded by English King Edward III, and it's Britain's highest civic or military honor. So that's been around since 1348. That's a long time. In 1516, I thought this was kind of funny, Duke Wilhelm IV of Bavaria endorses the German beer purity law and adds to its standards for the sale of the beer in Bavaria, ensuring beer is only brewed from three ingredients: water, malt, and hops. Wonder how many beer connoisseurs knew that one. In 1597, William Shakespeare's The Merry Wives of Windsor was first performed with Queen Elizabeth I of England in attendance. There's been a lot of Shakespeare stuff. Shakespeare has some good plays. There's some funny ones in there too. In 1635, the oldest U.S. public institution, the Boston Latin School, was founded. In 1661, English King Charles II was crowned in London. So I just got to decipher my own handwriting here. So we had a coronation in 1661 with King Charles II. In 1662, Connecticut was chartered as an English colony. Interesting how these things happen. And on this day in 1702, Queen Anne was crowned at Westminster Abbey in London. So there's two coronations in the space of 40 years. In 1789, President-elect George Washington moves into Franklin House in New York. If I remember correctly, he's the only U.S. president that never lived in the White House, because I think it was completed after he passed away or after he was out of office, one or the other. In 1795, William Hastings, who was the first Governor General of Bengal in India, was acquitted in England of high treason after a 7-year impeachment trial. This thing dragged on, and I've read about it. It dragged on for 7 years. They did not sit the entire 7 years. They were sitting on and off for the trial over the 7 years, but it took them 7 years to get all the stuff done for the trial and everything else. And then he was finally, overwhelmingly, they put it, acquitted. Wow. In 1851, Canada issued its first postage stamps. Now, this one here, I was like, are you kidding me? Now, there's going to be a lot of generations. I mean, this next piece is going to cover a lot of generations. We're talking from 1802 to 1994. So this whole event is going to cover multiples of generations. So there is, if you were in England or France during this time, then there is a good possibility that, and around London, Paris, all of that sort of thing, there is a good possibility that you may have had ancestors or somebody else in your tree that participated in this event. So it was on this day now remember I said 1802, so bear with me. In 1867, Queen Victoria and Napoleon III turned down plans for a channel tunnel. I was like, what? This was in 1867. I thought, my gosh, when was this first proposed? So I went and had a look. It was first proposed in 1802 turned down by Queen Victoria and Napoleon III in 1867. Construction started in 1998, was completed in 1993. It officially opened on May 6 of 1994, and the Eurostar services started in November of 1994. So from 1802 when it was first proposed to 1994 when the first train went through the channel, that is a long time. And I thought about this, I thought that is such a huge dream that somebody had, back in 1802, somebody had that dream, started the thought of, they first proposed the tunnel, but I thought, well, hang on, that's when they first proposed the tunnel. When did they first start thinking about it and talking about it, getting it to the point where they could then propose that, hey, let's put a tunnel under the channel between England and France? So it's sort of started the mind whirring that is such a massive dream that was first proposed in 1802, and the first train went through that tunnel in 1994. That is a massive dream that has covered generations. Can you imagine that? I mean, that just blew my mind to it. This is the one thing in here that just absolutely blew my mind today. I was sort of like, I thought, well, when was the first concept of it even thought about or started being talked about? Because you have to go through the thought process before you can get it to a proposal thought. I was like, man, wow. I remember reading the book, The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz, and he said, even as I write this book, there is talk about putting a tunnel between England and France. And this book, and Magic of Thinking Big, was written sometime around the 1930s, 1940s. And I was reading it around 98, 99. And so it had opened like 5 years beforehand in 94. And I was just like, wow, that's a long time to have that concept and I've always thought that until I saw this today and realized that the first proposal was in 1802. I was like, whoa, talk about mind-blowing. Talk about mind-blowing, and holding the dream through generations. That's just, sorry, it got me all excited today about that. Just trying to wrap my head around the size of this dream. And I was listening to, Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield in their book, The Aladdin Factor. They were talking about how, was it China or Japan? I think it was Japan, where they would be talking to people about dreams and goals, and they had 100-year plans, life plans worked out. They had the next 100 years of their life basically mapped out with their dreams and goals and when they were going to achieve things and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, that is pretty cool. Until they sat down and this guy presented them with a 300-year plan. And I sort of thought, oh yeah, that didn't comprehend until I saw this. First proposed in 1802, first train went through in 1994. Mind-boggling. Isn't that exciting? But, then it's sort of like, well, who's kept that dream alive over the years until it finally became a reality? That's just, that really is, the magic of thinking big. That's massive. Anyway, back to this real quick. In 1921, Charles Paddock ran the world record for the 100 meters in 10.4 seconds. I thought, well, what's the record today? So I went and had a look, and Usain Bolt from Jamaica set the record in 2009 at 9.58 seconds. Almost shaved an entire second off the record from 1921. I'm pretty sure there was other ones in between, but this is the first time I had seen this one when I've been going through doing these things, that, 10.4 seconds was set in 1921, and fast forward to 2009, and they shaved almost an entire second off a 100-meter dash. That's pretty cool. And I was reading this article, and they were saying that when Usain Bolt is between 60 and 80 meters, he's running somewhere around 40 miles an hour. Like, that's insane. Wow, that's fast for human leg stuff. In 1977, Dr. Alan Bussey completed 20,302 yo-yo loops in 3 hours. That same day, and I thought, what the hell's a yo-yo loop? Well, apparently you throw you You throw the yo-yo out in front of you, and as you do that, you swing it around as the yo-yo is going up and down the string. So you throw it out, and as you swing it around, it's still going up and down the string, and you catch it. Throw the next one around 20,302 times in 3 hours. That same day, he set the world's record for the number of loop the loop, and I haven't looked up to see what a loop the loop is, done in 1 hour, and he did 6,886. These are insane numbers. But basically, the way he came up with doing this thing is that they bought an edition of the Guinness Book of World Records for the kids, and he decided he wanted to get his name in there and figured out what he could do to get it in there. And I'm like, okay, everybody has a reason for setting their goals and their dreams, and his was to get his name in the Guinness Book of World Records, and he figured he could do that, and so he set out to learn how to do it and went and did it, and there he is. In 1982, this is going to take some of us back a few years. So in 1982, the 8-bit personal home computer, the Sinclair ZX Spectrum, was released for sale, and it went on to sell 5 million worldwide. And you're probably thinking, well, that's not a lot. Trust me, back in 1982, that was a lot. 5 million of the the Sinclair ZX Spectrums. I learned programming on the Spectrum. I learned programming on an Apple I, and I learned programming on a Spectrum. And the Apple I and the Commodore 64 had the same programming language, because then I could go home, because we had a Commodore 64 at home, and I could go home and I would sit there for ages typing in this list of code. You know, I'd do my homework and everything else, and then I'd have these magazines which had different programs in it, and you'd sit there and painstakingly type in all of this code to get the screen to do really cool things. And it could be just having a square do zigzags up and down the screen. And it would take like a code like this long. And if you got one line wrong, you had to go back through every single line to see where, and the font in the magazine was about this big. It was insane, but it was a lot of fun. And then, of course, we did the homework. The homework assignment was, okay, you have to get it to print your name all over the screen, or you have to get it to, and it was all based on different commands you would get. And I would practice on I would like learning in the Apple, because I had the Commodore 64 at home. They were the same language. I could work on both, but they also made me learn on the Spectrums as well. So, yeah, great memories on those. So, who in history, who in your family tree, whether your ancestors or your relatives, were involved in any of the events we talked about today, especially the tunnel, the Channel Tunnel. I mean, that still blows my mind. You know, that thing was almost 200 years in the making when you think about it. In fact, yeah, almost 200 years in the making when you think about it. That's just, and I mean, that's a dream and a half, that one. That really is the magic of thinking big. Somebody had that concept, and it probably got turned down several times before somebody turned around and said, yeah, let's actually look at the viability of doing that. And I'm thinking, and then I was thinking back, you know, if it had been accepted by Queen Victoria and Napoleon III back in 1867, how many lives would have been lost in that? Because would they have known about, you know, bracing against seawater, and, you know, would they actually excavated under the sea? Would they have, you know, how would they have accomplished it? And then you fast forward to, you know, the 1900s, they started digging it, they started construction on it in 1988, and with all of the technology and stuff that they had then, they didn't have that back in 1867. So that would have been one heck of a man-made, I mean, I still think it's an incredible man-made feat, that structure and that they have. But to do that in 1867, how many years would it have taken them to do that? And how would they have gone about it with the technology, with what they had at the time? It's just sort of like, you know, for everything there is a season, and obviously in the 1800s it was not the time to dig that tunnel, and so everything happens for a reason. So Queen Victoria and Napoleon Hill turned down those plans. The people kept coming back with the plans. They kept turning down until it was the perfect time for that to be done, because now the technology was in there. This they had more of a, I guess the engineering was now available to them to complete the structure. So you got to think about things in history. Why did it happen then and not there, and why was it put off for so many years? Why was it why was it rushed through and that sort of stuff? And it's because of timing. It's the technology, the engineering that's required for things like this. It wasn't there at the time, and so and thought processes were very very different at that time as well. So go back through your genealogy history and see, was there anybody in your family that was involved at some point in time with the plans for the tunnel, for the eventual building of it? Have you had any family that's gone through the tunnel? That would be really cool. Have you yourself been through the tunnel? But go back and have a look at through some of the things that have happened in history and what your personal family connection is to those. Because that's what brings history alive for us. Anyway, I'm out of here for today. We will catch you guys tomorrow. Although tomorrow's time is going to be a little different because I have an all-day mastermind and I have to move sparkles. So I'll probably be late in the afternoon tomorrow when we do genealogy and history. But I will try to let you know tomorrow morning when we're going to be on. But have a super fantastic sparkling day, and we will catch you guys tomorrow. Hei kona